Welcome to Papa's Workshop. In today's video, we're going to be using the upgraded Xcarve, and I'm going to open up the Easel software, and I'm going to be looking at the BoxMaker app. Now, there's two of them in the app library. There's a BoxMaker and there's a BoxMaker Classic, and that is great for being able to make boxes such as this. And you can also make boxes with the lids on it that slide. And I'm going to show you how to do that today. In addition, I've got a surprise. We're going to actually create a box, modify the file, and turn it into a drawer that you can use in your shop or in any cabinet that you happen to build. So let's get started. To begin this project, we're going to start off with a piece of masonite. We're going to make this 14 inches by the 12 inches, and it's going to be 0.259 inches thick. So with that set, this gives us our work area. Now let's go over to the apps, and I want to click on this, and we're going to start with the BoxMaker app right here. And that's going to be the first one that we do. Now we're just going to make a small box. So let's start off and just make this on the x-axis. We'll make it 8 inches. The height on the y-axis, let's just make that 4 inches. And then the depth, we'll make it 2 inches. Like I said, this will just be a small box. So here is the design right there. Now let's go ahead and add a top. And to make the pieces all fit together, we're going to add the dog bones. So we'll import that now, and let's zoom out so we can see the project. That's the project. It's literally ready to carve. But we got one problem. We got to be able to fit all of this into this space. So I'm just going to highlight the lid, and I'm going to bring that lid right over here. And I am going to take this first side piece, and we'll slide it right up to the top. And let's see, we'll take these next two pieces. Well, these are small pieces, so let's take care of the large piece that we have first. So I'm just going to highlight it, and let's rotate it. Let's go right up here and rotate this 90 degrees. And let's now slide that up into position. That ought to be good. Now we'll take the next largest piece and we'll slide it right down into this spot. And I bet we have room left over to rotate this one at 90 degrees also. Well, let's slide it right into that spot right there. Now everything fits on here. Let's zoom in a little bit closer. So there is our design. This gray area right here is the slots. And these, do they cut all the way through? Let's take a look. And that is the depth of 259 inches deep. And I do not have the tabs. I'm not using the tabs on this. We're going to glue this down with my glue and tape method to be able to hold this in position. And really all I'm going to need is one piece of tape here, one through the center, and one at the top, and that's going to hold it just fine. Now this is going to be the lid, and one of the things that I like to be able to do is add a little hole in the lid, just so it's easier to be able to grab. I want to take a round circle, and I'm going to put that right up here at the beginning. And how big do I want that? I certainly don't want it that big. Instead of having this 2 inches, we're going to lock this down, and we're going to make this at a 0.75. There we have it. Now we've got to position this right about this area. And one of the things I like to do, rather than just guess and place this anywhere in here, I want to be able to have this centered in this area. The easiest way to do that is just click on this lid, and let's see where it's located. With this highlighted at the center, I know that this is setting at 6.860. So if I highlight my circle and I put on the y-axis 6.860, then I know that that is centered. The other thing, how far over, doesn't really matter on this box. We'll just leave it there. I don't really need to have that cut all the way through. That way we can just go ahead and come up here to the cut menu, and instead of having that just cut everything as a pocket, let's just cut it on the inside. That way the circle will be there. We want to make sure that it cuts all the way through, and we'll get rid of the tabs. All of these now. This is set. Just for curiosity, let's take a look at this. How big is that? This is going to be cutting at a depth of 0.1295, which is about halfway through. And as far as the size of it, it's going to be cutting at 0.311 of an inches wide. So it builds in the tolerance that you need for the lid. Oh, I do want to show one more thing. These little areas right here are the dog bones. And you may ask, what are the dog bones? The dog bones, let's just create a box real quick. Now this is not going to be the exact size, but it allows that piece of wood to mesh right in there and be able to fit and fit correctly. And that's actually pretty close. So that's what a dog bone does. Allows that wood to fit all the way into position. So let's go ahead and get rid of this. We don't need it. So I'll zoom back out. Everything looks good. I'm going to set up the machine and we're going to carve this out. Now I went ahead and put 4 pieces down. Make sure that I catch everything, because this is going to catch the bottom part. This will catch that lid where the little knob is, and these will catch the other parts. So now I'm just going to go ahead and put a bead of glue down. Again, this does not take much glue. Just one bead of glue through here will do it. Now I'm using the Starbond thick glue today, and I'll have a link in the description below for a 15% discount. And of course this is the accelerator that I'm going to be using. Now I'll spray the accelerator on, and again it doesn't take much. Then we'll go ahead and position that right down where it needs to be. Okay, now after just a few seconds, this is done, it's ready to go. Now for the bit today, I'm going to use this 1/8 inch down cut bit to be able to carve that out. Hopefully that'll get some nice, very clean edges. Now this is the first carve that I've done since the upgrade, so you're going to see this in the first time also. You'll also notice that I upgraded and I now put on a dust boot. So we're going to see how that works also. So this now is all ready to be able to start to carve. The X, Y, and the Z are all set. Dust boot is in place. So now it's time to be able to finish the checklist and hit carve. Okay, quick change. Yes, dust boot will come on the next one. I want you to see all the sawdust. I also want you to see how well this is carving with the upgrade and how this app is working. Look at all the sawdust. It is everywhere. The other thing I want you to notice, this is an upcut bit, not a downcut bit. Oops. Now that's okay. It's good to be able to see that too every now and then. But look at all the sawdust. You can also see that it cut extremely well. The glue and tape method did outstanding. All this is going to take is just a little bit of sandpaper to clean up the edges, and it'll be ready to go together. Now, even though I made a couple of mistakes on this, I think they actually are very worthy to be able to leave in this video so that you can see the difference and compare when we make the next box. But a little bit of sandpaper, let's get this cleaned up and I'll glue it together. Now I want to be able to show you just a little bit of the sanding. It doesn't take much. And every now and then I'll take the knife and just kind of rub it right along the edge, and it cleans up the edge just as well as the sandpaper. But this is not a hard task at all to be able to clean up. But just wait until you see using the proper bit. Don't leave yet, because it's important for you to be able to see the difference. One small change by using a proper downcut bit will make a world of difference and virtually eliminate this entire step. Now that everything is sanded, I want to be able to go ahead and assemble this box. Now this is just going to be a dry fit. I want to make sure and show you how all of these pieces go together, and there's no other adjustments necessary. It just literally snaps together. And we put this end piece in real quick, and then I'm going to be able to slide the lid in. This app, the BoxMaker app, is so easy to be able to make a box. And you can barely see the little dog bones, but you can also see how nicely all of these pieces fit together. Now I'm not going to be real neat with this part, but I am using the thin CA glue by Starbond. And all I did is just literally put the box together. Now I'm just running the CA glue along the edges, and then I'll spray a little bit of the accelerator, and that'll be done. It'll be finished, and I can move on to the next section of it. Now the entire assembly of this little box takes less than about 5 minutes to be able to assemble. The nice thing about using the CA glue, once you snap it together and spray the accelerator on it, it's done. You can use the box. Now let's go ahead and move to the next box. We want to make one more now, and we're not going to have a lid on this one. Now let's use the same exact app, but this time let's not put a lid on it. So we're going to go back into the apps, go back to the BoxMaker, and on this one we'll go ahead and make it the 8 inches again. And as far as the width, instead of making it 4, let's just make it 4.5 and see how that changes with the tabs. The depth, instead of making it 2 inches, let's make it 3 inches. So that's going to change the tab configuration. This time we're going to leave the top off of it, but we're going to keep the dog bones. So this now is the box all created, so let's import it in. Now that it's imported in, off camera I went ahead and did the same thing as before, moved the pieces over and arranged them so that it would fit onto my project board. Now with that done, I can just double check everything and I'm ready to carve. I've gone through the checklist, everything is set and ready to be able to carve. Last step is this time I am attaching the dust boot, and you're going to see a world of difference. Oh, and by the way, this is a downcut bit. You'll see quite a difference. Now the last thing I want to do is adjust the height of the dust boot. I don't want it actually touching the project board itself. I want it raised up just a little bit above the surface. That's actually important to be able to do, to be able to allow the air to be sucked in from the sides. The brush itself will keep the dust away. You don't have to worry about that. With that set now, let's go ahead and get the carving started. Now, are you ready to see a huge difference? This is going to make a huge difference. Really, all I've done is made 2 changes. One, I put the correct bit in for the down cut, and secondly, we're using the dust boot this time. Right off, you can notice there's no sawdust flying around anywhere. So please consider using the downcut bits and don't make the same mistake that I made. But if you do, you'll know what happened and why. These bits are available in the Inventable store. Also, if you've been sitting on the fence about getting the dust boot, well, here is the reason why you should have the dust boot. It takes care of virtually all of the dust. It is a very nice feature to have in the shop. I want to zoom in just a moment so you can see just how good that this carving is coming out. This project is looking fantastic. The sawdust is being pulled and sucked away, and it's a very clean cut with the proper bit. Now here's the wide view showing the entire table, and look, no dust. Now that it's finished, I'm going to go ahead and remove it from the table. And I want you to see just how well that this glue and tape method works. The other advantage of the glue and tape method is there's no clamps. No clamps mean that the dust boot cannot bump into those clamps. So this is another real good reason to be able to use the glue and tape method. But take a look at this. These pieces are coming out fantastic. I may have to touch them up just a little bit with the sandpaper, but nothing like that first box. So then I'm just going to go ahead and glue this one together, and we're ready to start on the BoxMaker Classic app in the Easel library. Okay, I was going to skip this part, but I just can't resist. Look at these pieces. This is literally all I'm doing with the sandpaper this time. Just double checking to make sure that there's no fuzzies, and there's really none to be found. Again, I'll go ahead and dry fit this box together just to make sure that everything fits, and I know it will. This app, if you haven't used it before, give it a try. I think you're really going to like it. The BoxMaker app does a fantastic job, and you can make these boxes very quickly, any size that you want. Now I've opened up a brand new workpiece, and I want to go back over here to the app library. And for the first two boxes, we used this one right here, the BoxMaker. And that worked out, I think you will have to agree, quite nicely. Now I want to come down to this one, and we're going to use the BoxMaker Classic. In this case, I think what I'm going to do is use the box size as far as the width on the x-axis at 8 inches, the height on the y-axis, let's just make it 6 inches, and for the depth, 5 inches I think will be good. We'll leave that alone. Now it has the default at 0.75 of an inch, and looking at those tabs, I think that's going to be fine. Material thickness. Now the material thickness that we have for this piece is going to be a piece of plywood that's 5 millimeters. And you notice this is set up in inches. Well, I have a little paper chart that I use, and I always have it right near my CNC machine. That gives me the easy conversion. On the 5 millimeters, we're looking at about 0.203, and I'm going to go ahead and use that for my material thickness. So there's the project. I'm going to zoom in real close because these pieces have to be able to match together. So let me zoom in, and I'm going to highlight this one. We'll get this tab out of the way for the moment. And this piece needs to match into this one. And you notice the blue line. The blue line is the actual cut path. This is set up to cut on path, just like the other app did. But when I slide this over, you can see if this is my piece and that the bit is cutting out here, you notice that these are not going to mesh together. So in the BoxMaker Classic, we have to change this. This cannot be cut this way. I'm going to zoom back out. With everything highlighted, I'm going to change the path, and I want to be able to cut on the outside. I do not want to cut on the path. Now, I want to zoom back in, and let's take a look. If I look at this now, this is going to be the edge of the wood. If I slide that over, that now is going to mesh in there just right. So that is a very important feature that you have to remember if you're going to use the BoxMaker Classic. I have the project positioned now where I want it, but I also want to add dog bones in here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the app. We're going to go down to the dog bone app, click on it, and we're going to be using the 1/8 inch bit. So if I import that in, you can see the dog bones right there. Now I did the first set of dog bones, and I'm going to have that sitting right here. Now we're going to do the exact same thing again. Go back into the app. We're going to go back down to the dog bones. The only change is on the inside and outside. I want to take a look at that. So we're going to go ahead and click this one this time, and we'll highlight it, import it, and let's look at the difference. So now we have these two side by side. Let's zoom in. When you zoom in on this second set, you can see how these tabs are on the outside. That's not what we want. That's not going to do any good at all. So another thing you have to be aware of, we have to have those tabs on the inside. So this one I'm going to go ahead and cut. This was the first one that we had. We're going to use it. We'll delete the original, and we'll highlight all of this information here and center it to the material by selecting the edit menu, center the material, and that is done. We'll zoom in on this. We'll take a look at the tabs. We have the 4 tabs, so I'm going to go through each one of these, reduce it down to the 2 tabs, and I want to slide this over now and have these tabs on this outside area. Can't have it in the corner, and I don't want it at the bottom of that groove. I do not want it down here. So that's where I want the tabs. I'm going to repeat this process now for each of the sides of this box. After I added the dog bones, you notice this is back on the path. So if I highlight this and slide it over here, you notice this is not going to fit. So just because you did it one time does not mean that it is going to stay that way. So when you change and put the dog bones in, make sure that you come back and double check, because that would cause a problem with putting this box together. So I'm going to come back over to the shapes. I'm going to come back over to the cut menu. We're going to select cutting on the outside. That is a very important thing to be able to remember. Let's zoom back in and let's take a look at that now. If I highlight one of these, you can see that's now on the outside. And if I take and slide this over, and you can see that should fit just right if you look at that edge. All right, there we go. Okay, let's zoom back out. I went ahead and ran the simulation, and I changed the cut setting so that this will cut in one pass. And I think what I'm going to do, though, is make this happen in 2 passes. That way it'll do it in 2 passes and basically give me a cleanup pass for that second one. So let's go ahead and hit simulate now. So at 50 inches per minute, doing this in 2 passes, it's going to take 7 minutes to be able to carve this project out. I have completed the checklist, I've turned the spindle on, and now I'm ready to hit carve. Now I left the vacuum off. I want to be able to show you this. As this machine starts to do the carve, you're going to immediately see the dust. And then when I turn the vacuum cleaner on so the dust boot will do its job, you can see how that sawdust is being sucked right underneath the dust boot and into the shop vac. This is why you need to be able to raise the dust boot up just a little bit above the surface so it has the ability to grab the air and suck in and pull that sawdust up and out away from your project. Now again, using the downcut bit to do this project, it is cutting extremely clean. Again, there's virtually no sanding that's necessary when you're doing this type of carving. I want to take a close look. The tape is still intact. Yes, the project is cut all the way through. That is a perfect depth. That's the goal when you try to cut out these projects. Now I'm going to go ahead and take this off of the CNC machine and assemble it off camera. Now I want to move on to the second project using the BoxMaker Classic app. This time we're going to go back into the app and we're going to go to the BoxMaker Classic again, but we're going to do something totally different. This time we're going to make a drawer instead of a box. So for the width that I want to be able to have on this, I'm going to make this 21 1/4. As far as the height, this is going to be 14 1/4. And as far as the depth is going to be 5 inches. Overall, this drawer height is going to be 4 inches, but we're using a 1/2 inch piece of plywood to be able to make it. So I'm going to go ahead and type that in right now. And we're going to remove the tabs. So this 5-inch drawer with the tabs on it is going to actually be 4 inches when it's finished. And I'll show you that in just a moment. As far as the tab length, I'm going to make it fairly aggressive. We're going to do this at 2 inches. And from there, I'm going to import this in. Yes, it's larger than my area. That's okay. Now for this design, and I'm going to zoom out here a little bit, I am not going to need the bottom or the top of this box. So for those two, we're going to go ahead and cut and delete. Now, all that's left are the 4 sides. I'm going to make some changes to each of these sides. So from that standpoint, I'm going to go ahead and cut one of each one. And then when we're done with the modifications, then I'll copy and duplicate it. From this standpoint here, I'm going to go ahead and rotate this 90 degrees. And I'm going to make it where it's going to be easier to see. So let me just move this down, right down into this area for now. So now I have 2 sides that are left. Let's zoom in so you can see what's going to be happening. What I want to do is remove the tabs off of the top and the bottom. And I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more so that you can see it clearly. So what I'm going to do is highlight this first one, and I'm going to go right here to the edit nodes. And you can see the nodes pop in. Now I'm going to click on the first one and I'm just going to hit delete. And you notice that it goes right to the next one and then it drops. So let's try this down here. I'm going to go from this one, we'll delete it, and delete it. So if you notice, if I come from one direction or the other, I don't have to keep clicking on the node. All I need to do is just go ahead and hit delete. And that leaves me with this one right here, and I need to delete that. Now I have a straight line. I'm going to do the exact same thing at the bottom. We'll start with the first one, and it's going to do the same thing. It no longer is showing, so let's start down here at this end. So I'll delete, delete, delete. And this is a real easy process to do. You just got to know which end to start with, and that's a little bit of the trial and error. But now I have one piece finished. Let's go ahead and do the same thing with this other one. And there's my straight line. Now I have tabs in here. I actually think I'm going to leave the tabs. Now at this point, we deleted the drawer bottom. And the reason being is I'm going to use a piece of 1/4 inch to be able to do the drawer bottom. So what I need is a groove in here. So I'm going to go ahead and put a groove into the bottom of this drawer. Now this drawer side was 21 1/4 inches. So I'm going to go back up to this shapes menu. At the shapes menu, I'm going to select a rectangle. This rectangle I need to have right up here. We're going to go ahead and click on this so I can set it at the 21.25, and I want this at 0.3 of an inch. So that gives me a very thin groove. To be able to place it in here, I need to have it exact. So what I will do now is highlight just the drawer side itself. I'm going to have the bottom left-hand corner, and I'm going to put this at the 0, point. That way I know it's exactly right down here. Then I'm going to select this groove that I have, and I'm going to do the exact same thing, but this time it's selected at the bottom left-hand corner. I want the x-axis to be at 0 also, but I want to be able to raise this up just a little bit. Now this is 0.3 of an inch, and I want to be able to have this come off of the bottom about 1/4 of an inch. So I need to have this on the y-axis at 0.25. And that is going to give me this one right here. Now this length was wrong. Let's type this in again. 21.25 inches. And now we have it. So let's zoom in and take a look at it. Now if you look at this cut line, in fact what I want to do, it'll be a little bit easier to see if I slide that over a little bit now. There we go. So let's slide this over. You can see when this is cutting the project out, it's leaving this tab. I don't want that tab because it's cutting the slot, but it's not going all the way down. The easiest way to fix it is to highlight the groove and the edit menu, send it backwards. In fact, I need to send it all the way to the back. And when I send it to the back, it clears that out. So when it cuts it out, it will be gone and the groove will be the only thing that is there. And that's what I'm looking for. The other side will be taken care of also. If I take it and slide it over onto this area so that you can see it, you can see that this looks exactly the same. And that's what I want. That's going to give me the groove. Now the last thing that I want to do before we move on is highlight this, and I want to go back up here to the apps. I want to put dog bones in here. So this is the dog bone app. So we're just going to click on it. There's my dog bones. We are using the 1/8 inch bit. I don't need to do anything else. So that's going to be brought in now with the dog bones. This will need to be able to be removed. And here's my dog bones. If you zoom in real close, you can see them. You can see them right there. So I want to make sure that this is positioned for this one right at the 0, 0. And then I'm going to take, got to zoom out a little bit to find it. There it is. We're going to go ahead and move this up now to the same point again. 0 and 0.25. Let's make sure that we didn't lose our configuration. That looks good. So this one we can delete. Now with this one on the side of the drawer, we're going to do the same exact thing. But let's just go ahead and put the dog bones in first. The dog bones in here. There we go. There's my dog bones, 1/8 inch bit, so we're good. So we're going to take that. That's my dog bones. This is the original. So we'll cut it. We'll take this on up. And now I need to duplicate this one. So I'm going to hit Control C and Control V. I need to change the size of it. If you remember, this length was 14 1/4. These are the tabs of 1/2 inch on each side. So I need this at 13 1/4. Already have it at the 0.3, so that is good. Now I need to do the same thing. I need to position this bottom corner at an exact coordinates. So I'm going to go ahead and put this at the 0 on the x-axis, and I'm going to put it on the 5 on the y-axis. With this one now, we're going to do the same exact thing, but I can't have this on the 0. It has to be a 1/2 inch over. So this is going to be at 0.5, and this will be the 5.3 or 5.25 above this. So that puts it exactly where it needs to be. Now while we have it here, let's go ahead and send it to the back, and then we'll double check it. And if we look at that, we can see that's exactly what we want. Both sides are perfect. So now it's time to be able to position it onto the wood. So I'm going to go ahead and take this one, let's take both of them, and just rotate it to 90 degrees. There we go. That part is done. We'll slide that over here for just a moment. Now we also need to copy and we need to paste. So that gives me my other 2 drawer sides, and they're going to be identical. Let's go ahead and position them in now. Now I said earlier I'm going to use tabs on this project. So I have to be able to adjust the tab. They're sitting right there in that corner on that end. Don't want it there. So highlight over each of the tabs. I can slide it around to the flat area that I want it, and then repeat the process for the other members. I want to show you one more thing. Now it defaults with 4 tabs. I don't want that. I want just 2. So by changing it, now I have 2 tabs on each of these members. It still was right in that corner. So I can just grab it, slide it around on that flat portion, and it's done. So that just shows you just how easy it is to be able to select the number of tabs that you want and to be able to move them into the position where you want them to be. You do not want them in the corners. You don't want them in that area where the tabs are going to be joining the box together. Now I want to simulate this, and the default settings in Easel shows it's going to take 1 hour and 16 minutes to carve. No, that's going to be too long. So we're going to make some adjustments. Now remember, this is the first time I've used the X-Carve since I upgraded it. But I want to go ahead and select the manual settings, and we're going to change this 40 inches per minute, and we're going to bump it up to 100 inches per minute. The plunge rate, we're just going to go ahead and leave that alone. But the depth per pass, yeah, we're going to change that too. We don't need to go this shallow. We can be much more aggressive with that. So when I look at it, I can go ahead and click and get rid of the material. Now we can take a look and just see how the depths have cut. Now I really don't need that many passes. So I can actually go back in to the cut settings, and let's change that. That will also reduce our cut time significantly. So now we'll go back to the cut settings, and we're going to change the depth of cut down to 0.1 of an inch. And then we're going to resimulate that and look and see how much time that has reduced. So let's do the same thing. Let's get rid of the material. We've got it simulated, and now we can see a big difference. Now again, this is the first time that I've done any carving with the new upgrade. I could probably go significantly more aggressive. But we're going to take this one step at a time. We went from 1 hour and 16 minute carve time down to just 17 minutes. I think that's a big improvement. So with that done, let's go ahead and set up the carve. To make this easier and for me to be able to avoid having to reach across the whole entire machine, I'm going to take this entire project and rotate it 90 degrees. That way I can keep this whole project closer to the front of the CNC machine. Now when I rotate it, of course I need to change the size of the material, the same thing. Now this may seem like a very trivial thing, but it certainly makes it a lot easier to be able to work with when you're on that CNC machine. Because now I can easily reach the project, and it's right there at the front of the board. And it only takes just a couple of seconds to be able to make that change. Now there is one thing more I want to do. I want a handle. This drawer is going to be a slide through. I want to be able to put a hole in here to be able to grab hold to it. So I'm going to slide this back up here. We're going to highlight this one, and I'm going to cut it for now. That way I'm going to put one hole in here. So I'm going to get a square for this rectangle. Select that right here. we're going to just bring it right up into this area. And I think what I'm going to do is make this width at about, oh, let's just make it 3.5 inches on the x-axis. We'll make it 1 inch on the y-axis. And I also want to put a radius on here. The radius, since this is 1 inch, let's put the radius at 0.5, and that makes a nice circle. I also want to change this, and I don't want it to create a pocket. I'm going to change this where it cuts it out. We're going to cut it on the inside, just like this, and of course I want it cut all the way through. We're going to leave this with 2 tabs, and I'm going to get it off of the curve, one there, and slide it right over there, so that will be good. So now I'll highlight everything, hit Control C and Control V. We'll slide that back into position. And there we go. All done. So I have this all set up with my tape. All I need to do is put the glue down. Okay, off camera I went ahead and mounted the project board. And again, this is a 1/2 inch piece of plywood. Now I'm using the dust boot for this, so I don't want clamps to be able to up and be in the way. But what I am going to do is add just a little bit of insurance, just because this is a very large project. Now, you see where I'm putting the clamp. If I put a clamp here, guess what's going to happen? That dust boot will hit it. And if it hits it, we're going to have a problem. More than likely, it will lose steps, and it will make it where the project is not going to work. So here's a simple solution. So here's the project actually being carved, and you notice how that dust boot would have bumped into that clamp. What I did is just simply put a screw into that corner, and that would solve the problem, and there's no way that the dust boot can get hit and ruin the project. On the opposite corner, I did install the clamp. Now that clamp is going to be okay, because a second solution, if you position your project onto your board where that dust boot is not going to go into that area, then it's perfectly fine to have the clamp. And that's what I did here. This whole project can just go ahead and do the complete carve and not come anywhere close to that clamp. Now we're nearing the end of this job, and you notice this is a 1/2 inch piece of plywood that's being carved out, and there's no sawdust. I love the dust boot. When you're using the dust boot, you have to be careful with the clamps. Now this clamp was out of the way, and this was just a little bit of extra insurance for my glue and tape method, because this was so large. But I put a screw in this corner right here, because the dust boot would have interfered and caused a problem. So you really have to check things out and make sure that you do not have any obstacles in the way when you're using the dust boot. Now this glue and tape method worked just fine. It held real good, but I wanted just that little bit of extra insurance just in case on a project this large. Off camera, I went ahead and assembled this box or drawer. The only difference with this one, I just had to cut the 1/4 inch piece of plywood to slip into those grooves that I cut out. And you can see that this turned out fantastic. One of the nice things about this tool stand and this drawer is I have access to it from both sides of the tool. And that I actually really love. This is a great feature. Today I've been able to show you 2 apps, the BoxMaker app and the BoxMaker Classic. This gives you a wide variety of different options, whether you make a sliding top for your box or an open box without a lid. And you can even make a complete closed-in box and a drawer, all with these 2 apps. The possibilities are virtually limitless. Now this is a box that I made actually quite some time ago, and I was using the Easel software for this with the BoxMaker Classic. And in this particular case, I not only put the words into the top of it, but I cut the hole as well. And this has been a very, very useful project in the shop to be able to recycle all of the different trash bags that I have. So let your imagination run wild and see all the different projects that you can create with this wonderful app in Easel. You know, a box like this has multiple purposes because you can cut this in half and all of a sudden you have two boxes that you can use. You can also cut it at different heights and create a lid. So there's a lot of possibilities. And don't forget, before you actually assemble this, you can carve in each of these sides if you wish. So the possibilities are just literally endless as to what you can do with it. Now, I enjoyed doing this video for you guys today to be able to show you the two different apps that are in the app library on the Easel software, the BoxMaker and the BoxMaker Classic. Both are excellent apps, and there are only slight variation between the two of them. And don't forget, on that BoxMaker Classic, you have to make sure that you set the toolpath correctly. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me today and being able to learn how to do the BoxMaker apps in Easel. And if you like this video, please go ahead and give me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And of course, hit that little bell notification right down there in the corner. And I look forward to seeing each and every one of you in whatever project that I'm doing next.